Thank you, Zachary.
Well, we have a lot to talk about this evening, friends. I should warn you that some of what I am going to cover is challenging or confrontational, and that goes for people who are viewing the video of this, which will be posted in the near future on the internet by Chandra. However, there are some subjects which have to be discussed in some depth. Some of them involve predictions or speculations, so we don't know exactly how things are going to work out. But let's just start and see how this journey continues. Okay, the images that you see in the slide are from somewhere in the United States. They're not specifically identified. I think they're from a rural area. It was taken by a farmer, and I think it's in the northern states somewhere, and I think it was probably taken in August or September. And you can see that Nibiru has now become much more visible to many people around the world. Not that they know that it's Nibiru, they see it's a second glowing orb of light, the second sun, whatever you want to call it. And of course, they're not getting any answers from the authorities, so people are questioning what's going on. People are assuming this, assuming that, but the official narrative remains silence. Okay, let's go to the next slide. And then the next one after that.
Want to go to the next one?
Next one, please. Yeah. Okay. Some of you hearing this have already known about the comets 31 Atlas and R2 Swan. Recently, I've been communicating with Chandra and Shrikirti specifically about these issues. I'm sure others of you listening have heard about this. Okay, in September 2025, astronomers announced their presence in the heavens. Actually, I think it was maybe earlier. It might have been as early as July or August. But anyway, it's within the last few months that we've been getting these announcements. And basically, the official narrative is that these are interesting and profound discoveries of new comets. So we should all focus on them and try to understand what they mean, what the implications are. And you can see in the diagram on the left, the orbit of 31 Atlas, and on the right, there's some sort of other diagram involving that particular comet. Now, a few days ago, Chandra sent me a video entitled Michio Kaku. And those of you who watch documentaries, scientific documentaries, astronomical documentaries on TV would certainly have heard of Michio Kaku. He's a professor at a university in New York, and he is a very respected astrophysicist and astronomer. His opinions on such matters are sought after and presented as the truth, and I've seen a number of his comments, and he's pretty good on most of what he says, in my opinion. I don't claim to have his level of expertise, but generally speaking, it's pretty good stuff. And as mentioned, the video was called Michio Kaku, Nine Hidden Objects Discovered Escorting 31 Atlas Through Our Solar System. Now, this was posted about 10 days ago on the internet. It's got 565,000 views. So a lot of people around the world are interested in this subject and in the opinions of Michio Kaku and another astrophysicist, Professor Avi Loeb, based in Harvard University, about what this all means. And we'll go to the next slide to look at that in more detail. Okay, this is from the website Orbital Today on 15 September. And the headline is Harvard Professor warns interstellar object 31 Atlas could be an alien mothership. And they state in the article, Professor Avi Loeb, head of Harvard's Galileo project, argues the object's retrograde orbit and alignment with the Earth's path are too rare to be dismissed as coincidence. So you can see the photo of Professor Loeb on the left there. And you can see that anyone holding the Earth between his hands like that certainly is a very powerful individual, and you should respect their opinion. I'm sure that many people around the world who know about the existence of UFOs and extraterrestrials were delighted to read his comments because finally we have an authority from the scientific and astronomical community stating publicly that he believes, anyway, these objects surrounding the comet, Atlas, could well be extraterrestrial in origin, motherships, God knows what. And then on the right, you see a photograph of Michio Kaku, as mentioned, a very well-known and very highly respected astronomer and astrophysicist based in New York. And the photograph in the middle is of 31 Atlas floating out in space. Okay, from this article from Orbital Today, here's a quote. Loeb estimates it could be as large as 12 miles wide, which he says is unusually big for an interstellar body. It could come to save us or to destroy us. So the drama intensifies. We'd better be prepared for both possibilities and verify that all interstellar objects are just rocks, he said. So that brief statement of Professor Loeb opens up a huge range of possibilities. And many people around the world are very intrigued at the possibility of these objects accompanying Comet Atlas might be extraterrestrial in origin, motherships, whatever. Michio Kaku disputes that in the video, so there's this back and forth sort of dialogue between them. And it's all very slickly done, all very professionally done. But what is the truth about these comets? Next slide, please. Wait a minute. Could this just be another poisoned chalice coming from the Nibiru cover-up crowd? Could it just be another piece of cleverly crafted disinformation, which is designed to distract, deceive, and divert humanity from the truth? Well, that is the Zeta Talk conclusion. And of course, it's a conclusion which basically I accept. I don't claim to have a high degree of astronomical knowledge. I mean, I am interested in astronomy to some degree, but I find that there's a lot of hoopla and hype and just craziness, in my opinion, craziness, insanity surrounding this whole subject. So you have to wonder if something deeper, much deeper, is at play here. And this Zeta Talk analysis from August of this year explains from their perspective, and again, you have to make up your own mind whether to accept it in its entirety or partially or reject most of it. That's your decision. They state, in 2025, we have Atlas, an inbound comet estimated to pass near the sun later this summer, go behind the sun in September, that's last month, and then emerge into view in November. Okay. Any light near the sun during this time would be ascribed to Atlas rather than to Nibiru. This maneuver buys the Nibiru cover-up crowd several months' time, or so they hope, so the status quo can continue. So that's a very interesting analysis. They're not denying the existence of the comets, Atlas or R2 Swan, but they're stating that their appearance in the heavens is basically part of the Nibiru cover-up. Ah, how interesting. Next slide, please. Okay, this is from July of this year. We predicted in 2010, so that's 15 years ago, they predicted that NASA would find a comet when Nibiru is scheduled to become visible, and this has occurred. Expect this version of events to emerge just ahead of the time when man can see Planet X complex in the skies themselves daily, unassisted by a probe. And that relates to the opening photographs or images from a farmer somewhere in the northern states of the United States. Okay, the comet is ideal in that it supposedly goes behind the sun in September, so you can't see it until it emerges in November. And right as the comet reaches perihelion, or its closest approach to the sun, When it should be at its brightest and most active, the sun will pass right in between Earth and our line of sight to the object. How convenient. Next slide, please. Okay, this is from a post on some social media site. I'm not sure. And now here comes Swan, which is 100 times bigger than 31 Atlas. Two massive interstellar objects, 31 Atlas and R2 Swan, are on a collision course with destiny. That's almost poetic verbiage. Both approaching the sun at nearly the same time. One is rumored to have a nuclear-like core, and you may have heard this if from other reports on the internet. That's Atlas. The other, a plasma shield and precision drive. Wow, how interesting. So these must not be normal comets. There's something very special about them. Ancient monuments may have warned us of their return, yet the world remains strangely silent. And you can see on the right diagram the projected trajectory of R2 Swan. Okay, this is from continuation of the Zetteltalk analysis. Thus, NASA is placing it near the sun in view from Earth. That's the comet Atlas, just where Nibiru is at present. Ah, how convenient. Nibiru is shrouded by charged red dust, which clings to the giant magnet Nibiru, which is hard to discern except by infrared scopes. Its effect is felt mainly by the daily Earth wobble, which slings the Earth, causing plate movement and the resulting extreme weather events. And I'm going to read that sentence again because it is so significant and so relevant, and I've been covering a lot of this in previous lectures on Nibiru. The effect of Nibiru is felt mainly by the daily Earth wobble. And I don't know about the rest of you, but I've been noticing, as I have for many past months, and in fact years, the sun and moon rising and setting in strange places in the sky, places which they should not be. That's because of the daily Earth wobble. And that's slinging the Earth around, which causes plate movement. And we've talked a lot, especially in the earlier lectures, about the major tectonic plates of the Earth moving around, shifting and shaking like they haven't done for the past 3,500 years. And that, in turn, causes extreme weather events. So nothing to do with global warming and carbon dioxide in the air, which is the official narrative that they're pushing hard, and they have for decades now. This is actually the root cause and the real cause. But again, you have to make up your own mind. If you want to believe the official narrative, fine, that's up to you. I certainly don't, but many people do, of course. And that's because they are unaware of Nibiru, thanks to the Nibiru cover-up on the part of the predatory elitists, the powers that be, the media, the governments, the scientific community. And that's actually been quite successful, remarkably successful, that cover-up, to, at this late point in time, see the vast majority of humanity remaining in deep ignorance about Nibiru and the coming pole shift. Anyway, to continue the analysis, the petrol and debris inbound have no other explanation than the Nibiru presence, and we've covered this in some of the previous lectures. The anti-Nibiru crowd will try to force the status quo so they can remain on top of the pile. That means they want us to remain ignorant of the fact that Nibiru does exist. It has had a very profound effect on Earth since 2003, and the ultimate prediction is a pole shift scheduled for sometime late next year or early 2027, and that's not far off in time, to state the obvious. Next slide, please. Okay, this is from March of 2010, so 15 years ago. Those in the establishment, which includes NASA management, assume the common man to be utter fools, easily led about by any statement uttered from the mouths of professionals. And that, to me, links back to the video with Avi Loeb and Michio Kaku. That's just my opinion. Make up your own mind. Those directing NASA are professional liars, first and foremost, seeing the losing battle over what is appearing on the Soho and stereo images for the past year, and we've covered some of those images in past lectures. They have started a backwater campaign, hoping their version of events will catch on and become viral on the internet. They will lose in this gambit, as even if someone were to grant them their story, at the very least, this means that they were clueless about what was causing earthquakes, magnetosphere changes volcanic activity and so many signs in the skies. Well, that maybe is a bit optimistic on the part of Zetatalk. I think they've actually succeeded quite well in deluding, deceiving, and diverting humanity about these very key issues. And people are swallowing the global warming greenhouse effect as the cause of these major changes right around the planet without understanding the actual root cause, which is Nibiru. So the Nibiru cover-up crowd has been very, very successful, remarkably successful, I would say, in recent months, years, and decades. Okay, and the analysis continues about the UFO phenomena. The many times NASA has been caught in a bold lie. We know that NASA's been lying about UFOs for decades. That's no surprise, except to the dumb and deluded. We have stated that NASA will be the first to be blamed when it becomes obvious that the common man has been told, lied to, and they cannot escape this fate. I hope that becomes true. Next slide, please. All right, this is from this year, September of this year. The Zetas have all alluded to potential Nibiru panic by November. Now we're getting serious because they're saying that by November of this year, which is just a hop, skipping a jump away, a few weeks away actually only, there's going to be worldwide panic as the Nibiru complex becomes more and more visible and people turn to the authorities and they're told various fantasy stuff, fairy tales. Oh, it's just Comet Atlas. Oh, it's just an optical illusion. Oh, maybe you're just dreaming it. It's not actually, you're not even seeing what your eyes tell you. Okay, not just the vision given to Nancy about the sky globe during crop harvest time. I think I covered that in the last lecture on Nibiru in late July. But in responses to questions about the Atlas comet due to pass behind the sun and emerge again in November, is November a firm nexus? In other words, a timeline. Does that confirm? All indications point to an increased visibility of the Nibiru complex in November. The strongest indicator from the Nibiru cover-up is having Atlas come from behind the sun in November. What led into the choice of Atlas as an excuse for Nibiru was confirmation by human astronomers as to the path Nibiru has been taking, going from the right-hand side to center in front of the sun. Sunlight dispelling through the vast dust cloud shrouding Nibiru will provide the sudden light increase. Next slide, please. And the top series of photos is what we saw at the beginning of the lecture. These photos taken by an unknown farmer somewhere in the United States, presumably somewhere in the northern states. I'm not really sure. And I think it was August or September. The photos taken below are from this year. You can see a photo from September of this year from Mexico. The photo in the middle is not identified, but you can clearly see Nibiru there. And then those photos from Siberia taken in August of this year. So this is becoming more and more visible right around the world. And people just aren't getting any satisfactory answers from the establishment. The astronomers aren't talking about it. The government's not talking about it. The media's not talking about it. So of course it must just be a fantasy, right? Maybe just some weird fantasy that crazy people like Zachary Casper and maybe a few other people around the world are subscribing to. You can trust us. We're the authorities. We're the experts. We tell you the truth. Next slide, please. All right, this is for September of 2025. This is from a TikTok video. A report from Idaho shows that evidence and this testimony about booms, these are sounds coming from the Earth, is being suppressed to reduce panic. Booms are very real, arise from rock breaking during plate movement. And in one of the previous lectures on Nibiru, I talked about the booms coming from central China. Very, very interesting subject. They were subscribed to some little bird, some quail making these sounds during mating season. Totally ridiculous, of course. Utter nonsense. But that's what the authorities were pumping out. After investigation, the booms are dismissed. No, they are not from fireworks or target practice. Then no more is said. And I've actually watched this video on TikTok. It's very short. I think it's maybe 2 minutes. And you can see this farmer, and he's a good old boy from somewhere in Idaho, I think, a really down to earth guy. And he's saying, shortly after posting my video about the booms, um, I got contacted by the authorities, and I'm not going to say if it's at state level or county level, but they said, maybe you shouldn't be talking about this stuff. As an agency, they've been told to deny the existence of the booms. And one of his friends, apparently, who also talked about the booms, well, he had a heart attack recently and now he's gone. How interesting. How interesting. So it's obviously a cover-up going on, and it's becoming a bit more sinister, at least in this case. Next slide, please.
Zachary, just this afternoon on social media, on Facebook, a friend of mine in Broome, in the northwest part of Australia, posted something saying, "What the F was that?" And then there were a whole lot of people from Broome talking about this boom that everybody'd heard, that it was so loud it terrified them. And one woman said she thought it was the aliens coming, and someone else thought it was some war happening. But it was all over the northwest part of Australia today on social media, a very loud boom. I'll see if I can find a link and send it to you.
Thanks. Well, that's very interesting. And of course, that's not been reported here in the East. I mean, these are just obviously crazy people. I mean, maybe it was a bird making a noise. Maybe it was, I don't know, God knows what. So they're trying to cover it up. I mean, locally, they can't hide the fact that many people have heard the booms, but nationally, we would just ignore it, that these are crazy people. They're out of their mind. So we don't have to, give it a second thought. So the powers that be want us to think. All right, this is from September of this year from Zeta Talk. The new Madrid fault line rupture is the result of a stretch where rock is violently ripped apart. The booms heard during such separations are due to vibration in rock on both sides of the separation, a sudden jerk, then a return into a new position, all the while bumping about. Stretch zone noise is assumed to be silent, and primarily this is the case, but when the rock is tightly attached and resists such booms are often present. And you can go back years and hear booms from various parts of the world. I think there were some booms in Florida many years ago. It was heard during a baseball game, apparently. I've seen that video, quite interesting. And I think it was somewhere, Sarajevo, whatever, they had some booms. This is years ago. So these reports are nothing new. They've come from various parts of the world over many past years. But of course, they're not being reported by the mainstream media, except at the local level. And at the local level, they say, well, these people heard the booms, but no one knows what it is, so we'll just ignore it and move on. The Nibiru cover-up suppresses information about any Nibiru sightings or the composition of the red dust and debris in Nibiru's tail, which is wafting toward Earth at present. The excuses are endless, but the establishment also suppresses conversation on the internet. Don't report, don't repeat, don't publish is the rule. And that's the cover-up, which has been so successful. And the so-called alternative media, as I've mentioned many times, in my opinion, has failed quite miserably and quite spectacularly in reporting what is actually going on. Eventually, the suppression gets attention, so it adds to the mountain of truth available to the common man. This is why President Trump is rushing to invoke official martial law in the United States. At present, this is claimed to be a cleanup of crime, but it is martial law on the creep. And now we're getting to a fairly serious subject, so prepare yourself psychologically for what's coming. Next slide, please. Okay, from the internet, Brave search engine. Defense, and you probably heard this, I think Chandra actually alluded to it. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth convened a rare large-scale meeting of hundreds of U.S. generals and admirals, over 600 apparently from what I understand, at a Marine Corps base in Quantico, Virginia, and it was just a few days ago at the end of September. As part of a significant effort to reassert leadership direction within the military, the gathering, which included nearly all senior military leaders worldwide, was described as a pep rally focused on promoting a new warrior ethos. Well, that's the cover story. Now, in regard to Secretary Hegseth, I've looked at his horoscope, and it's quite afflicted. He has basically a Grand Cross and mutable signs. His sun in Gemini is in opposition to Neptune, I believe it is, and his moon in Pisces is square both Sun and Neptune, And then you've got Mars and Saturn in Virgo, which concludes a five planetary lineup, T square, sorry, Grand Cross. Now, that's the astrological view. Most observers that I have heard don't really regard Hegseth as a good or serious contender for Secretary of War. They regard him basically as a Trump flunky, someone who only was selected because of his unquestionable loyalty to Donald Trump. You can make up your own mind, but astrologically, it's not a good look for Pete Hegseth. Okay, and Trump said he would attend Hegseth's gathering of generals to tell them how well we're doing militarily. Well, this is just a cover story, my friends. There's something much more serious going on, which they don't want the general public to know about, which we'll explore in the next slide. Okay, this meeting of Trump, Hegseth, and the hundreds of U.S. generals and admirals had nothing to do with the hype and speculation broadcast by the media. It was all about planning for the imposition of martial law in the near future, because Nibiru is now becoming so visible all over the world that the decades-long lie about its non-existence no longer works. So the Nibiru cover-up, which has been so successful for so many years and decades, is now coming to an end simply because so many people around the world are seeing strange things in the sky, and they're saying, what is going on here? And they're not getting any answers whatsoever from the authorities. This is the most recent offering from Zetatalk. The Pentagon has summoned 620 top generals to Quantico for a secretive meeting on the 30th of September. The agenda and purpose is not known. The speculation is running high. Is it staff reduction? Is it new rules now that the Department of Defense is actually named the Department of War? Is World War III about to begin? President Trump will attend. Now, the Zeta State, the Quantico meeting, is about full martial law in the U.S. due to a Nibiru admission. So that is what they predict is coming. And friends, I hate to say it, but when martial law is declared in America, and I don't think Trump or his aides will come out and say, yeah, we're declaring martial law now because Nibiru's become visible. And, we've been lying to you about the last 3.5 decades about it. But that's what's actually happened. I think they will try to present it under some hyped up or con job. The sad thing is that it is predicted, this martial law is predicted to be imposed in most countries around the world after America does it. And that includes this one, Australia. And that's the bad news in this presentation. I'm sad to say, but I can't remain silent about what is predicted to happen. Next slide, please. Okay, from last month, the anticipated increased visibility of the Nibiru complex in November is forcing the start of full martial law in America due to the panic in the public expected. Because I've been lying about Nibiru for the last 3.5 decades, when people finally realize that something actually is up there and that Nibiru does exist and they've been lied to, well, there's going to be panic. Not only panic, but a lot of anger. It's not going to be a pleasant situation. President Trump has been preparing for this time by the aggressive deporting of illegal aliens, many of whom have criminal tendencies. And that's a good thing. That's something which President Trump has done, which I highly commend him for, and I fully support. That's one of the really good things he's done since he came back into power in mid-January this year. He's also been preparing by cleaning up the big U.S. cities. Expect the pace of this cleanup to be expedited. So you can't tell the public not to look up, nor to notice sunlight streaming through a nude red dust cloud now moving in front of the sun. Though long rumored within the upper ranks of the U.S. military, specific preparations for a specific date are different than rumors. Troops and supplies need to be aligned with the plan. The steps leading into the official announcements made to the public need to be established. Now, just what the date of this announcement will be, we will not say. Permit me to speculate. I think it's going to be sometime at the end of this month, October, or possibly the first week of November, maybe into the second week of November, but that's putting it a bit late. I think it's going to be late October or early November. That's just my guess. I have no way of knowing, of course. The expectation that November will be a time of panic in the people is a clue. The U.S. military is not expected to wait until panic is gripping the nation. Thus, it wants to be ahead of this panic. And as mentioned, once Trump declares martial law, or actually de facto martial law, because I don't think he's going to say, yeah, folks, we're putting America under martial law. He'll invent some fancy term or whatever. It's going to happen here too. That's my prediction, sad to say. Next slide, please. Okay, indeed, the number of U.S. cities to have a military presence under the guise of cleaning up crime has increased just this past week. And Chandra mentioned this, she alluded to this in her fine presentation. Portland, Oregon has joined the rank. This is just recently. This follows a cleanup in Los Angeles when the ICE, what is that, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, was attacked and defended by National Guards and Marines. Then Washington, D.C., that was back in August. And the photos you see down are photos from the military presence in Washington, D.C., National Guard, FBI, whatever. Then, although still in process in Chicago, Memphis is scheduled. The pace is picking up. Actually, martial law has been in effect in New York City since March of this year. It's not mentioned as such. It's a crime cleanup, right? You got troops down in the subways, and it's all supposed to be a cleanup of crime. Nope, this is martial law, my friends. That is what is happening. Next slide, please. All right, from June this year, as talk mentioned, Nibiru, with his entourage of moons and petrol-laden debris, is making itself known worldwide. The Russian press was ablaze with discussion at the end of May, and we covered this in a lecture, I think in June, over an object seen next to the sun. The Nibiru word is now casually used in the media and on the internet, so panic is on the brink. Martial law can be imposed insidiously or harshly, but the preferred method is to impose martial law gradually as circumstances require, and therefore not withdraw from the steps that have been taken. This confrontational time has been anticipated for years by the junta. That's the military junta that seized power from President Obama in a secret, unreported, silent coup in October of 2015, according to Zedetalk and from other sources, and President Trump. Leak warnings that there were 17 key cities expected to explode into violence have been on the internet forums for the past couple of years. Insurrection with states succeeding from the Union is another threat that has been mentioned, with the current LA riots over ICE actions, creating this potential within Win Newsom. That's the governor of California. He's a real nasty dude. Threatened to withdraw IRS payments from the U.S. government. The June 14 D.C. parade will establish new ground rules and expectations. And you might remember that on Trump's birthday, which is 14 June, there was a big military parade in Washington, and there was a lot of speculation about, what was really going on, why it was happening, whatever. This is preparation for martial law declaration. Next slide, please. Now, believe it or not, the imposition of martial law, or at least de facto martial law, which means martial law in effect, but they're not calling it as such, is nothing new in America. Did you know that? Preparations began back in July 2015 when Obama was president during Operation Jade Helm, conducted by the U.S. military. Now, what was supposed to happen back in July of 2015 was the military conducted large-scale operations within America called Operation Jade Helm. And then Obama was supposed to step up to the microphone and say, well, folks, it's time to make an announcement. There's this interstellar body called Nibiru, and it's floating around in the solar system, and it's predicted to pass by the Earth in the near future. And there's going to be a lot of chaos when it happens. So we, the government, want to be honest with you about this. We want to tell you what's going to happen. But don't think about rioting because we just had this Operation Jade Helm. So if you want to riot, you want to, act like crazy people, we got it under control. But Obama chickened out. He didn't have the courage to make the announcement. And therefore, according to Zedetalk, and I haven't covered this because it's a very, very complex story, in October of that year, 2015, just about 13 months before the next presidential election, which was November 2016, the one where President Trump beat Hillary Clinton, the military took over control of the U.S. government in a secret and silent coup. They walked into the office, the White House, and said, okay, Obama, you didn't make the announcement, so we're taking over control. But we're leaving you here in the White House as a figurehead. We're not going to announce that we're actually taking control. You can stay as a figurehead because you only got 13 months left. But we're running the show from now on. That's hasn't been reported in the media, of course, but the alternative media, to their credit, has covered that story to some degree, which is very good. Okay, back to the Zedetalk explanation. Is this martial law creep legal? Martial law has been in place since 2015 when Jade Helm expected Obama to announce the existence and pending passage of Nibiru. And what Zetatalk has stated since 2015 was that the United States has actually been under de facto martial law since that point in time. You can believe it or not, but I think if you look deeply enough, you can find a lot of evidence pointing to exactly that conclusion. Next slide, please. Now, do you understand the real reasons behind the lockdowns and imposed restrictions of the coronavirus COVID-19 era from early 2020 to late 2023? Is it becoming clear? COVID-19 did exist. It was a new and virulent strain of flu. I caught it myself in 2022. It floored me for about 12 days. I was in bed for about 12 days. But its impact was hugely exaggerated by the predatory elitists and their puppets in government. Thus the term COVID scamdemic, which accurately describes the situation. And many people now, thank God, many people now are realizing just how badly we were lied to, deceived by the powers that be, the authorities, about this scandemic. Not that COVID did not exist, it certainly did. But its influence and effect was grossly over-exaggerated, grossly hyped up. And of course, you had the vaccine rollout, and we're not going to talk about that because I think most of you hearing this know just how disastrous and how deadly that whole rollout was. Okay, the lockdowns and restrictions of the coronavirus COVID era of just a few years ago were trial runs to see how populations all over the world would react to the imposition of de facto martial law, without it being labeled as such. The globalists and elitists wanted to see just how far they could strip traditional rights and freedoms in any nation and gauge how the population would react. Well, we're going to destroy your right to personal freedom and travel under the guise of the scandemic. We want to see how you react. Are you dumb enough to actually believe this? And many people were, of course, but a lot has changed since that point in time. They were preparing for the era when Nibiru's approach and effects leading up to the pole shift could no longer be denied, and that era is commencing. So, what do we have? They took notes. They took detailed notes during that era, early 2020, late 2023, about how many people complied, what was the resistance, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now, we don't know how severe the martial law, the de facto martial law declaration will be when it comes to the United States or to Australia. We simply don't know. I don't think they can get away with what they did between 2020 and 23. Too many people have woken up about the COVID scamdemic and the disastrous rollout of the COVID inoculations. So I don't think they can get away with what they did in that era, but no one really knows. No one really knows. We'll just have to see. We can hope and pray that it won't be as severe, as rigorous as it was at that point in time. And now I should say that, in my strong opinion, we have a few weeks, maybe several weeks of normalcy left. What do I propose that you as individuals do? Well, I would secure your food supply first and foremost. You have some extra money, I would say stock up on grains. I would also say I highly, highly urge you to start your own vegetable garden if you haven't already. Secure your water supply. Tie up any loose ends that you may have in your life as best you can, because we don't know how severe the martial law declaration or imposition will be in this country, Australia. We simply don't know. As mentioned, I don't think they can get away with what they pulled off between 2020 and 23. I don't think commerce will stop altogether, but there will be restrictions of whatever sort, and I don't want to speculate on what those may or may not be. But that's my strong advice, my friends. If you believe what I'm stating, or even part of what I'm stating, I highly urge you to prepare yourself as best you can during the coming weeks of normalcy before the declaration of martial law in the United States, this country, and other nations as well. That's my advice to you, but you're thinking individuals. You have your own free will, so make up your own mind by all accounts. Next slide, please. All right, let's talk about Charlie Kirk. As you may be aware, he was murdered on the 10th of September this year. He was a political activist and Trump supporter. And we're told by the FBI that it was the work of a lone gunman. Tyler Robinson, I think his name was 22 years old, 23 years old. He was in a relationship with a transgender individual and, blah, 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 blah. But more and more evidence is pointing to the direction of a professional assassination operation by the Israeli Mossad. It's not the lone crazy gunman theory which the FBI wants us to believe. All right, this is from September. The assassination of Charlie Kirk was an inside job, not what the public was being led to believe. Despite diversionary tactics such as random people confessing, this was a professional job done by the Mossad. The Epstein files are starting to leak out, and they will inevitably show that Epstein worked for Israel. And thank God, a lot of people now believe that's exactly what the case is. And they believe that's why President Trump and the FBI are lying, blatantly lying, about the non-existence of the Epstein files. Yes, they do exist, President Trump and the FBI. And yes, a lot of people have seen those, and that truth can no longer be hidden despite your lies. Shameful what President has done, Trump has done in regard to that. That's my opinion. The recent leak of clients included a top Trump donor, a guy named Paulson, I believe, Donald Paulson or something like that. He donated some millions of dollars to the Trump campaign, and he's in the Epstein black books. Very embarrassing for President Trump, of course. Though President Trump was only assisting the investigation of Epstein during social contact with Epstein, the release of the Epstein list will inevitably make Trump look suspect. And that's what they are worried about. Both in Israel, Netanyahu and his motley crew, and of course among the Republicans and MAGA supporters, because it makes Trump look suspect. Sad to say. I don't personally believe that Trump was involved with any underage girls under Epstein. Some people believe that, of course. I personally don't. But what they're really worried about is the fact it was being directed by Israel. Epstein was an Israeli agent. And they're really worried about that truth coming out. And it's too late, though. A lot of people believe it. And they're not going to accept any rubbish from Trump or anyone else that wasn't the case. Next slide, please. Okay. Though Kirk supported Israel, as does President Trump, the public may conclude that Israel was blackmailing the Trump administration, and that's exactly what has happened, in my opinion. To prevent the loss of support for Israel and the Trump administration, the Zionists in control of Israel determined to make Kirk a martyr. The expected upsurge in his immense following will conclude the Democrats assassinated Kirk and ignore the Epstein data. That's what they want us to believe. That's the cover story. But even as we speak, the cover story is being shredded. There was a video issued by Redacted, that's Clayton and Natalie Morris. I think it was about 5-6 days ago, in which they presented new evidence that the FBI version of events, i.e. it was this lone gunman, Tyler Robinson, they ripped it to shreds. And within 4 days, it had gotten 1.5 million hits. So a lot of people around the world are now concluding that the FBI's version of events is complete garbage, which is the truth. No, this was a Mossad hit. The truth will likely never be known to the public. I think the truth is coming out, thank God, but be washed away by the Nibiru panic soon to engulf the world. So, okay, this hoopla about the Kirk assassination will fade into the background once the Nibiru admission is made. That's the prediction. Well, we'll see. Okay, Epstein worked for Israel, giving them blackmail material galore. Bit by bit, the Epstein list was being exposed, starting with the key Trump donor, John Paulson. Charlie Kirk was open to debating any issue and recently implied that Israel would not be considered a sacred cow exempt from examination. And in the photograph and the headline from some source, I don't know, on the right, this came out just 2 weeks after the Israel-Hamas war started in October of 2023. Trump toady, well, of course, that's the leftist version of Charlie Kirk and what he represented. It was deranged conspiracy theory. Oh, it's total rubbish. Netanyahu allowed Hamas attack to happen for political reasons. Well, that's exactly what did happen, in my opinion. So the amazing thing was that Charlie Kirk, despite being an Israel supporter, despite being a strong a Trump supporter, had the courage, the integrity to speak the truth way back then. And of course, that's another reason why the Mossad wanted him dead, because of his immense support in America, especially among younger people. And he was beginning to question the official narrative. Oh my God, we can't have this guy casting aspersion on the official version of events, can we? So that's how things are going in the world, my friends. Not a very pleasant picture, to state the obvious, but I didn't know anything about Charlie Kirk before his murder. I hadn't heard about the man, but I do think he was a man of great integrity because he questioned the official narrative way back then, and he continued to question it. And the Mossad figured, well, we can't have this guy around. He's just telling the truth too much for us, so we'll take him out and blame it on some lone gunman, 23 years old, and the public might be dumb enough to accept it. Fortunately, that's not the case. Next slide, please. Okay, did you know that Donald Trump has a body double or look-alike? Well, probably not, unless you read certain sites on the internet. Okay, it's part of a very much wider story about many body doubles now walking the planet who are impersonating persons of importance, especially in the political arena. Persons such as Elon Musk, it's not the real one. Bill Gates, not the real one. Pope Francis I, not the real one. He was real at one point in time, but they took him out, put him in a body double. It's a long, long story, very complex. We don't have the time for that. Complex story, but the bottom line is that a variety of reasons. Some are good reasons, and some are quite sinister. Many prominent figures are being impersonated by body doubles for a variety of objectives and reasons. Now, this is from Zeta Talk from last month. Social media went into a frenzy for several days at the end of August when President Trump disappeared. It has been his normal practice to be available to reporters daily, signing executive orders and attending meetings, and suddenly, nada, nothing. Was he dead? The use of doubles is seldom explained, so when a double takes sick, what happens then? After Trump's near miss during several assassination attempts, of course, he would have a public double. Ben Fulford, that's Benjamin Fulford, and I do follow Fulford to some degree. He's a very interesting guy. Sometimes he's very spot on his comments. Other times he misses really badly. So you have to use a lot of discrimination when viewing what Benjamin Fulford says. But correctly, he has said for several weeks now. He often commented on the public Trump being several inches shorter than the original, and that is quite correct. He attributed it to a coup, but never feared the original is safe and well. But the double needed a sick day. He needed a day off. So a lot of the Trumps we're seeing is not the real Donald. It's a body double. It's a very complex situation, very confusing, and but apparently that's what's happening. Next slide, please. Okay. President Trump is alive and well and living outside the public eye due to constant assassination fears. And we can link the assassination fears of Donald Trump to what the Mossad did to Charlie Kirk on September the 10th. They took Kirk out, professional hit, blamed it on some dumb patsy, some idiotic 23-year-old who was in a relation with a transsexual guy. And this, Chandra and I have communicated about this. She speculates it was a warning to Trump. Don't cross us. Don't try to stop Israel. Don't try to stop Netanyahu, or you're gonna end up the same as Charlie Kirk. And I think she has a point. Okay, Trump was replaced with a double shorter than the real Trump, who was reduced at the risk of a sudden loss of the president. Trump's daily signing ceremonies and spontaneous pressers has accustomed the public to the reassuring sound of his voice and commitment to his policies, so a day off is a shock. The double is sick, needs time off to heal. But guess what, folks? There's more than one double at hand, so another is getting prepped. So things are not what they seem to be, my friends. Things are not what they seem to be in the world of politics. That's another statement. Next slide, please. Okay, I think this is the last slide here. The Zeta Talk has said for many years that there are 10 phases leading up to the pole shift. The 7 of 10 phase is the tectonic plate movements, and that's been going on for many years, and we've detailed this in previous lectures. The 8 of 10 phase, which is happening now, to be focused on social unrest, and that is happening in a big way. If you follow the news at all, you will see huge amounts of unrest. In Paris recently, wide-scale riots where the public took on the police, tires and garbage cans getting burned and all this rubbish. In the United Kingdom, hundreds of thousands of people demonstrating against that evil man, Keir Starmer. And it's happening here too with anti-immigration rallies and so on. There's a lot of unrest right around the world with the authorities and the garbage, the rubbish they're trying to impose upon we the people. In addition to the shortage and cost of food and the need to escape flooding, and of course, inflation and the cost of living have been real issues for a significant portion of the Australian population and presumably that of other nations. The resentment that the lower classes have against the ruling classes will become extreme, even with the establishment keeping a lock on any Nibiru admission, which is soon to be blown apart or ripped apart, according to Zeta Talk. The common man is getting the truth from their alien visitors, as more than the majority of humans are now contactees. That's a whole other subject we can't really go into because of time limitations. How many millions or billions of people around the world have been contacted, mostly subconsciously, by alien visitors? A very complex subject. Eyes open. Any attempt to limit truth on social media will rage those in the know. The elite have long been in the know about the pending passage of Nibiru and smugly arranged for their safety inside well-stocked enclaves. Those are bunkers in various parts of whatever country where they, underground bunkers where they've stocked up on food and supplies. And just before the pole shift, their plan is to go into the bunkers, lock the door, and then after the pole shift happens, come out and resume control over the population. That's their plan anyway. They assume they could control the masses and outlive them, thus remaining on top of the pile in the aftertime. The aftertime is the time era or period after the pole shift. The reality is that the awakening masses will not cooperate. It will overrun the enclaves and distribute the supplies of the elite. New leadership will emerge from natural leaders. We have long predicted this outcome. And that is what is happening, my friends. Just take a look at any nation you want to. Some of you may have seen what happened in Nepal just recently when they attempted to limit social media. I saw in the news just this evening that in Afghanistan they've cut the internet for whatever reason. So it's all happening right around the world. I think that's the last slide. So if any